It was a crisp autumn morning in the small village of Brackenhurst, nestled along the rugged coastline of northern England. I had recently relocated here to escape the noise and chaos of the city, seeking a slower, quieter life by the sea. The salty air, the constant rhythm of the waves, and the tranquil beauty of the village were all that I needed. One day, while walking along the windswept beach, I noticed something unusual wash up against the jagged rocks. An old bottle, its glass fogged and worn by time. My curiosity got the better of me, and I carefully picked it up. Inside there was a weathered piece of parchment. I unsealed the bottle and unfurled the letter. The handwriting was delicate, almost elegant, though some parts were faded and blurred by the salt water. The letter read, "To the one who finds this letter, I leave my heart in your hands, for it was lost long ago. But I still hope you find it and keep it safe. Yours, Edwin Marshall." The words stirred something deep inside me. They spoke of love, lost and longing, and I couldn't help but wonder who Edwin Marshall was and what had happened to him. It was a mystery I had to solve. I couldn't let the letter go unanswered. I asked around the village, but no one seemed to recognize the name Edwin Marshall. There was a certain curiosity in the air whenever I mentioned it, but no solid answers. It wasn't until I visited the local cafe that I learned more. The owner, a friendly woman named Marjorie, mentioned that there had once been a shipbuilder named Edwin Marshall who had lived in the village. He was well known for his craft, creating beautiful wooden boats that sailed the local waters. "There's a place by the cliffs," Marjorie said, her eyes clouded with thought. "A small workshop. He used to live there. But that was years ago. His wife passed away, and he never quite recovered." Her words struck me. A shipbuilder, a man who had lost his wife. Could he be the one who wrote the letter? I knew I had to find out. The following day, I took the coastal path that led to the cliffs. The sea was a deep blue beneath the clear sky, and the wind howled as it swept across the rocks. I finally came upon a modest stone cottage, its windows overlooking the turbulent waves below. The door creaked open when I knocked, revealing a man in his mid-40s with salt and pepper hair and a weathered face that seemed both kind and weary. "You must be Mr. Marshall," I asked, holding the letter in my hands. He looked at the letter for a moment, his expression unreadable. "I am," he said softly, stepping back to allow me inside. The cottage was sparse but cozy, with wooden beams overhead and a warm fire crackling in the hearth. A few old boats, half-built, sat in the corner, evidence of a life spent crafting ships. I handed him the letter, and his eyes lingered on it. "It's mine," he whispered. "But it's been years since I wrote that." I could see the sadness in his eyes, the weight of memories he had carried for so long. His hands shook slightly as he set the letter down on the table. Edwin invited me to stay for tea, and as we sat by the fire, he began to tell me his story. "I lost my wife Anna in a tragic accident years ago," he said, his voice heavy with grief. "She was everything to me. I couldn't go on after she was gone. I thought if I wrote that letter, maybe I could find some peace. Maybe someone would understand." His eyes glazed over with the memory, and I felt a deep sympathy for him. His love for Anna had been all-encompassing, and it was clear that he had never truly let go of her. "I don't know why I wrote that letter," he continued. "I thought it might drift away, disappear into the sea, and maybe that would be the end of it. But then you found it." There was a long silence between us, broken only by the crackling of the fire. I couldn't help but feel connected to him, to the pain he had carried all these years. In the weeks that followed, I visited Edwin often. He was reluctant at first, but something in his demeanor softened each time we spoke. Slowly, we started to form a bond, an unexpected one. He would tell me about Anna, their life together, the adventures they had shared before her untimely death. In return, I shared my own stories of life in the city, of the fast-paced world I had left behind. He listened with quiet attention, as if the stories I told were something he had never encountered before. It was clear he hadn't spoken much to anyone in years. One afternoon, I helped him with one of the boats he was building. As we worked together, there was a quiet understanding between us, a shared sense of peace that neither of us had expected. Though our bond was growing, I could see Edwin's internal struggle. He was haunted by the past, still tethered to Anna in a way that made it hard for him to move forward. "I don't know if I can do this," he admitted one evening as we sat on the porch, the sky painted with the colors of dusk. "I don't know if I can open myself to someone else. Anna was my everything. How can I let go of her?" I didn't know what to say. I couldn't ask him to forget Anna, to erase the years of love and loss he had experienced, but I wanted him to understand that he didn't have to forget her to embrace the future. You don't have to forget her, I said softly, but you deserve to live to be happy again. Anna would want that for you. He looked at me, his eyes searching, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of hope. A few weeks later, as I helped Edwin put the finishing touches on one of his boats, I realized that something had changed between us. There was a tenderness in his touch, a softness in his gaze that hadn't been there before. "Thank you," he said quietly as I handed him a tool. "You've helped me more than you know." I smiled, feeling a warmth in my chest. It was more than gratitude in his words. It was a recognition of the bond we had built. "I'm glad I could be here for you," I replied, my voice gentle, "and I'm glad you're starting to move forward." For a moment, there was a silence between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was as if the weight of the past had lifted just a little, making room for something new. As the days turned into weeks, I saw Edwin change. He began to speak more openly about Anna, not with the same sense of loss, but with a sense of acceptance. He no longer seemed weighed down by the past. Instead, he began to find joy in the small things. The feel of the wood in his hands, the smell of the sea, the laughter we shared over tea. It was clear that he was healing little by little, and I was there, by his side, watching him find his way back to life. One evening, as we sat together by the fire, Edwin turned to me, his eyes steady. "I think I'm ready," he said, his voice filled with quiet determination. "I'm ready to move forward. And I think I want to do that with you." My heart fluttered, and for the first time, I allowed myself to hope. I had come to care for him deeply, not just for the man he was, but for the man he was becoming. "I'm ready to," I whispered, my voice filled with certainty. We stood together on the cliffs one last time, watching the sun dip beneath the horizon. The sea was calm, the waves gently lapping at the shore. In that moment, I knew that we had both come full circle. The letter that had brought us together had done its job. It had helped Edwin heal, and it had led me to him. And as we stood there, hand in hand, watching the waves roll in, I knew that the past was behind us, and the future was ours to create. Ready to improve your English in a fun and engaging way? Start learning through stories today. Subscribe to Learn with Godson and dive into captivating stories that will help you expand your vocabulary, understand sentence structures, and practice pronunciation. Stories make learning English exciting and memorable. Join us on this journey and watch your language skills grow with each story. The voiceover in this video is given by Learn with Godson. Copying or re-uploading is prohibited.